Hi, my name is Beryl Pong. I am a Vice Chancellor's Fellow in the School of English at the University of Sheffield, and I'm the principal investigator of a project called The Aesthetics of Drone Warfare, which is funded by a British Academy Rising Star Engagement Award. For this year's Being Human Festival, I've curated a virtual exhibition on the world of drone art for the festival theme of New Worlds. The Aesthetics of Drone Warfare is a multidisciplinary project that looks at the relationship between aesthetics and drones in at least three ways. First is aesthetics in terms of art. So I look at not just the visual arts or the installation arts, but literature, music, film, photography, and how these artists are thinking about recent developments in the drone world and their relationship to sociocultural life. A second way in which I'm looking at aesthetics is in terms of the 18th century conception of the term, which has to do with questions of embodiment. So 18th century aesthesis was about the relationship between the mind, the senses, and the external environment, and this kind of mediatory process between the subject and the world. The third way in which I'm looking at aesthetics is in terms of politics. Aesthetics and politics are often thought as diametrically opposed, aesthetics as the beautiful or the tasteful and not as the political. But recent academic work has been thinking about aesthetics as politics itself. So because aesthetics is this mediatory process between how we understand the world and how the world appears to us, aesthetics have the capacity to make the world look reasonable or thinkable or self-evident as a given. But aesthetics also has this interventionist ability to show us alternative worlds, other ways of understanding the given, other ways of experiencing the world in which we live. So I'm looking at these three levels of aesthetics in my research project. Aesthetics and drones intersect in various significant ways because drones can be said to create new worlds. It seems to have world-making capabilities. And my example for this is really the world of drone warfare, because drone technologies, their origins are really in the military realm. So on one hand, drones have created new worlds of visualizing and embodying the distant and that which is otherwise inaccessible. A drone operator can sit somewhere up to thousands of miles away from the unmanned aerial vehicle, the device that is over there, and experience what happens over there through metadata, through a digital screen. Drones also create new socio-political legal worlds because they really change the shape of contemporary warfare. Drones initially were used primarily for surgical strikes, strikes against known identities, known personalities, but increasingly they're being used as signature strikes. They're being used to find potential targets, to find people whose behavioral profile match those that might be militant or those that might be radicalized. So drones now operate in this logic of preemption, which means that drone warfare can be undertaken in any time and any space, regardless of whether a country is at war with another country. And the most prominent example of this is Pakistan, which is an American ally, but who has seen its own fair share of very high-profile drone strikes since the war on terror began. So if you're interested in some of these research questions, you can take a look at my project website, which is artofdronewarfare.com. On it, you'll find more information about the research, about a conference that we held here in the University of Sheffield in February. There's also other material that you can peruse there. So some keynote recordings of lectures that we've hosted, some podcasts with various artists who are thinking about issues related to drones and art. And for the Being Human Festival, I've curated this virtual exhibition on the world of drone art, which comprises a selection of about 37 international pieces by artists thinking about some of the issues that I've highlighted. The exhibition seeks to explore how these new worlds, the world of drones, the world of art, the world of aesthetics, the world of politics, all intersect and interact in very complicated ways. And it explores these issues through a 3D interactive digital gallery platform, which is powered by Kunst Matrix. The immersive quality of this digital gallery experience, which you can move in and out of, you can look closely at a painting or a work of art and move away from it, and look at it from different angles. This is meant to play up the multiple levels of mediation involved in the world of drones, and to think about the crossovers between what one sees, both physically and digitally, and how this creates unique ways of embodying the world of drones. And of course, one of the questions that I hope to highlight by curating this virtual exhibition is the fact that many of these drone artworks aren't meant to be seen in a gallery space at all. They're often site-specific installations, or they are digital works of art meant to be circulated online. And what happens when we start thinking of drone art as art in the kind of institutionalized sense of the term. So I'll just give you a quick introduction on how to navigate this virtual exhibition platform. You can enter full screen for the full experience. And you can either walk around the gallery by clicking on the cursors here or using the arrows on your keyboard. Or if you're on your mobile phone, you can just swipe with your fingers and zoom in and out and pinch. Or you have the option of starting a tour. If you start the tour, the gallery platform will just take you through the exhibition piece by piece at its own tempo. You can look at a list of all the works that I've included, along with the dimensions and the artists. And if you want to know more about the exhibition and about the ethos behind this piece, then you can click on About the Exhibition, this eye over here. The exhibition is accompanied by a sound piece, which I've commissioned from a PhD researcher at the University of York, Jean-Baptiste Masson. And for the full experience, I recommend that you have your headphones on. Jean-Baptiste has created a really interesting piece that explores how drones exploit multiple ways of being, multiple layers of being. So he has created a sound piece which transports you to different places, and that seems to layer your experience in the gallery on top of other experiences which are sonically rendered. It's hard to explain, but I recommend that you listen to his sound piece at the same time that you look through the art gallery. I'll just show you what happens in the gallery. You can go up to a work of art and click on it, upon which you'll zoom in. You have the option of learning more about the work of art. So this is Dronestagram by James Bridle. And if you click on the eye, you'll get some text that pops up from the artists themselves about their work and what they are hoping to achieve. You can then close this window and zoom back out yourself. Or if you want, you can click on Previous or Next, in which the gallery will then just swerve you to the next adjacent art piece for you to take a closer look at in that way. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the artists who agreed to participate in this virtual exhibition, just to give you a flavor of what is included in this world of drone art. And I'll start with James Bridle because I'm here already. James Bridle is a British artist whose work has been instrumental in drawing attention to military drone use, which is often opaque and couched in secrecy. Among his better known works include drone shadows, which he's installed around the world. And these are these massive one-to-one life-size scale chalked outlines of drones on the ground, which he's installed in cities like London and Istanbul. So the public experiences these drone shadows as outlines. You're asked to be engaged in the aerial view and looking down at the shadows, but at the same time you're grounded. So there is this kind of interesting play with perspective and embodiment here. But this is an image from Dronestagram, which is a 3-year project where he uses GPS coordinates to find satellite images of the location of drone strikes. These landscape images are then posted to social media, which include Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, and the posts include brief details on the deaths caused and the damage done, and they appear on social media as information about the strikes appears. So they're not live, but they have the semblance of being live. Bridle draws attention to network-centric warfare, but of course, Dronestagram also references the fact that many satellite views of Google Earth are themselves produced through drones. So there is this larger interdependence and ecology of the everyday spatiality of digital media and mobile devices and their interaction with drone violence at play here, the way that the military and the civilian realms are folded together. A second artist whose work I've included is Thomas van Houtrieve. Van Houtrieve is based in Paris. He's a photographer and a writer who was one of the earlier artists to use drones for photography in a very self-reflexive way. He uses drones to think through and to comment on the view that the drone enables, but also the way this view might occlude or obscure certain information. I've included photographs from his series Blue Sky Days. The title references the testimony of a 13-year-old boy whose relatives were killed in Waziristan, who said that he did not like blue skies anymore because the drones are flying when the sky is blue, when the sky is clear, and that he prefers gray skies instead. In these photographs, Van Houtrieve tries to address the gap between the drone war and the visual record of the drone war, which was lacking at the time. He researched drone strikes using sources like the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch to compile a list of scenarios of foreign drone strikes and to bring that information home in quite literally home. So he bought a drone and flew over and photographed comparable scenes of these foreign drone strikes, but on the American soil instead. In this particular photo, he photographed a schoolyard in California in reference to a drone strike on a religious school in Pakistan that killed some 69 children. He uses black and white photography because in interviews with former US drone sensor operators, they've told him that they often experience the world through the drone as black and white through infrared. And Van Houtrieve highlights this vertiginous perspective of the drone. So drones are often thought of as omniscient, as a god's eye view, but Van Houtrieve is really thinking about the weird way in which drones look directly down from above. That's a very unusual way of experiencing the world. And as he puts it, it's more like looking through a soda straw. Actually, the view is quite restricted and disorienting. A third artist whose work I've included is Ellen OHara Slovic. Slovic is an American artist that really brings home the violent history of the aerial view. One of the things that Slovic really gets at is the importance of understanding the contemporary view of above as part of a much longer history of political and racial violence. So I've included drawings and paintings from her series Protesting Cartography, Places the United States Has Bombed, which is an atlas of the places that the United States has bombed, stretching from 19th century Nicaragua to 21st century Iraq. She works from military surveillance imagery, aerial photographs, battle plans, maps, and mass media sources, and uses a variety of mixed media such as gouache, watercolor, and graphite to depict these sites in a poetic and fairly abstracted manner. Slovic has spoken about how she uses abstraction consciously because she wants to reach people who might otherwise turn away from or recoil from realistic depictions of political violence. So she wants to make these beautiful paintings that lure the viewer in to take a closer look and to then, for them to then reflect on the complicity that their country might have in this history of bomb violence. Although bodies and civilians are invisible from her artwork, The aesthetic of her drawings, the blotches of red and blue, suggest a kind of bleeding or a kind of cellular injury to the map that is being portrayed. Next, we have Mavish Chishti, who's an American Pakistani artist who, upon returning to Lahore in 2011, was struck by the presence of American military drones in everyday life and media there, in contrast to the relative invisibility of the drone war in the US. She created a series of paintings and installations concerned with the object or the silhouette of the drone, that is rendered through or filled out through various styles of Pakistani craft and art. So this includes Mughal miniature painting, which employs techniques such as tea staining and the application of gold leaf flakes, which you can see in this painting here. And it also includes the use of truck art, which is a kind of folk art tradition where drivers personalize their vehicles, often at great financial expense, with elaborately painted floral patterns, religious symbolism, calligraphy, ornithological imagery. Unlike drones, truck art is intended to be as eye-catching and as ostentatious as possible. Like Slovic, Shishi wants the viewer to get physically close to her drones, and many of her paintings are actually quite small in scale. When you look at images online, it's hard to get a sense of the scale of the actual work. And one of the things that the Kunstmatrix platform allows me to do is to render the artworks to the scale in which they might appear in the room. So when you go through the gallery, you really do kind of have to physically go up to this painting to take a closer look. This piece of art is called Reaper, and it's a really good representation of the kind of work that Chishti does. The eye of a cyclops in truck art could reference the evil eye, or conversely be used to ward off bad omens. But here Chishti is also clearly referencing the unblinking gaze of drone surveillance. The drone is rendered through this cultural idiom. In Chishti's words, she wants to juxtapose the terror with the representation of cultural beauty, and she wants to draw attention to drone warfare's penetration of everyday life in Pakistan. And of course, with the knowledge of Slavic's paintings, we should note that this penetration of aerial violence is historical and colonial, which the deeper time of miniature painting techniques reference. Many of the drone strikes today take place at the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and that site is, of course, a legacy of late 19th century colonialism. It's part of the Durand Line, which was drawn by Britain and Russia. The fifth artist that I've included is Joseph de Lapp. De Lapp is a professor of games and tactical media at Abertay University in Scotland. And he has this really prolific body of work which fuses online gaming performance, sculpture, installation, and the digital art. He's the designer of an interactive computer game about drone warfare called Killbox, in which you can play either the role of the drone operator, or of someone subject to the drone's gaze. And this is accessible on his website. For this exhibition, I've included some of his interventionist, playful work on drones and digital media, which play off of the way drone imagery circulates in the digital sphere. So one series I've included is called Thrift Drones, in which he purchased thrift store artworks, added a small cutout imagery of a military drone to change the visual meaning of the work, and then redonated these back to thrift stores to have them kind of be redistributed in the public. The image I'm showing here is from his series Cowardly Drones, which has a similar style. In Cowardly Drones, he downloads images of military drones from the internet and adds the word cowardly to the body of the UAV, highlighting the conflicted ethics of surveilling and killing from a distance without any risk to one's own person. Like Thrift Drones, Cowardly Drones is meant to have a circulatory afterlife in the public, and in this case, in the digital sphere. So after altering the photos, he uploads them to his website with basic titling information like Predator Drone, with the aim of having these images then being reinserted and recirculating in Google search images of drones online, and to make, as he says, a subtle intervention into the media stream of US military power. A sixth artist whose work I've included is Brisbincone Fox. Brisbincone Fox is an Australian artist who uses her paintings to think through some of the moral and ethical questions concerning the use of contemporary military technology. Although a lot of artists in the world of drone art use digital and new media, Brisbincone Fox's oeuvre comprises works of gouache and watercolor to create these atmospheric, cosmic renderings of drones in the sky. These are often paired with transcultural religious symbology, like the Tree of Life symbol here. And again, like Shishi, the kind of all-seeing eye. Think about drone technology's relationship to life, to humanity, and to the planetary condition more generally. The mystical imagery in part references the impression of drones as being godlike, as being able to see as more than human. At the same time, her work often includes representations of binary code, of lines representing targeting signals, to make some of the infrastructure underpinning drone surveillance visible. The image here is of her painting Cloud Eyes. In her work, she explores the many meanings and evocations of the cloud as metaphor, as networked systems and digital infrastructure, as technology which has become naturalized and a part of our everyday existence, as part of the atmosphere in which we exist, even while its presence feels ethereal or intangible. The eye here is painted in a shade of night green vision, the eyelashes like components to a computer circuit board. And its gaze cuts through the surveillance net and a cloud which itself cuts through the Tree of Life, as if to emphasize the way all of these things, technology, surveillance, network, humanity, are imbricated together. Next, we have Addie Wagonette. Wagonette is an American artist based in Austria whose body of work examines tensions between expression and technology. Her art often blends painting, sculpture, and installation with the ethos of hacker culture, and she's very much concerned with the relationship between power, networked consciousness, and beauty in the technologization of everyday life. In particular, Wagonette creates these fascinating aesthetic pieces in those multiple senses of the word. Aesthetics as kind of a beautiful work of art, but often as a product of a certain material or bodily encounter with technology. So in the works that I've included here, from her series Black Hawk Powder, she uses drones as a paintbrush. Her drone paintings are made with her piloting domestic drones, which she uses to apply pigment onto her canvas and to make playful designs. She asks drones to barrel roll, to flip, to swerve in order to paint. And in this work, Agra at Dusk, she uses natural beet dye, which is the pink, as well as gunpowder, which is the black. And she experiments with thermochromic pigments that react within a certain temperature range. So the shades and the hues look different depending on the temperature. They're also reactive to light. So the whole work looks different all the time, depending on the time of day, the season, the space in which it is situated. What I find really compelling about Wagonette's work is the way they navigate the promises and pitfalls of technological prosthesis, the way these works are created through mastering the tool of the drone, while at the same time acknowledging that drones always seem to have some autonomous capability, a way of being, doing, creating that can't always be controlled or predicted. Last but not least, we have the work of forensic architecture, which isn't kind of an artist in the sense that the other figures I've talked about are. Forensic architecture is in fact a research agency based at Goldsmiths, University of London, and they investigate human rights violations, including violence committed by states, police forces, militaries, and corporations. Their investigations use techniques in spatial and architectural analysis, open source investigation, digital modeling, immersive technologies, as well as documentary research, situated interviews, and academic collaborations. So this image is taken from an investigation they did on an airstrike in North Waziristan, based on video footage of a drone strike that got smuggled out. So that video that got smuggled out itself is very fragmented and chaotic. But through it, forensic architecture was able to piece together and to map the location of the strike, to understand the consequences of the strike and the munition that was used. This is a model that they constructed based on the data that they found, in which the trajectories of the shrapnel pieces are plotted on a color scale by their distance from the point of explosion. I've included a link to Forensic Architecture's own video explaining their research methodologies, which you can look at if you click on the eye when you're in the exhibition space. In addition to their work being used by the United Nations and by human rights tribunals, forensic architecture has also exhibited in art galleries and museums worldwide, and they've won design awards. So their work is this really fascinating and important example of the way art can tell something about the world of drones and drone warfare through the world of digital aesthetics to affect political change. So that is by no means an exhaustive index of the world of drone art, but that is an introduction to many of the most significant pieces that have been produced over the past decade or so. And I'm really grateful to each of the artists who have agreed to have their work shown in this manner for this virtual exhibition. The exhibition can be accessed on the University of Sheffield's Being Human website. I've included the link here. You can follow us on Aesthetics Drone on Twitter and also on our website, artofdronewarfare.com. And we would love to hear from you, from your reactions to the art pieces, to the virtual exhibition shown, and just to the world of drone art more generally.